Anna had always believed that life, no matter how difficult, eventually balanced itself out. After her husband Mark left her and their son Ethan without warning, the world around her slowed into a dull, quiet routine. The weight of loneliness didn't fall on her all at once. It crept in slowly, filling every gap that Mark's absence had left behind. Working part-time at the local library kept her distracted, but nights were the hardest. That's when the silence wrapped around her, tightening its grip. Ethan, 16 and old enough to understand the meaning of loss, had grown distant too, though he never spoke of it. He'd always been a quiet boy, but after his father left, his silence felt heavier. His world revolved around school and football practices, and the rare conversations between him and Anna became short exchanges about homework or dinner plans. Neither of them admitted it, but both were living side by side, each trapped in their separate worlds. It was around this time Daniel entered their lives. A new neighbor, polite, well-spoken, always ready with a smile and small talk. Anna had met him on an ordinary Tuesday, helping him carry groceries to his flat. He had a kind face, the kind that promised comfort, not adventure. What started as brief chats at the mailbox turned into long conversations over coffee. Daniel seemed to understand her in ways she didn't know she needed. Anna hadn't intended for anything more than friendship, but his presence filled the hollow spaces of her life so easily. Daniel listened without judgment, offering both empathy and laughter, things her world had lacked for too long. Over weeks, her dependence on his company grew, and though she didn't speak it out loud, she started looking forward to their time together more than anything else. Ethan noticed the difference before Anna did. He could see how her mood lifted on the days she saw Daniel. Her eyes, once weighed down by exhaustion and worry, occasionally flickered with life again. But that same light seemed to push Ethan further into the shadows. Though Daniel never stayed long when Ethan was home, his perfume lingered, and so did his mother's distant smile. Anna convinced herself that this new connection was harmless, a well-deserved reprieve from years of loneliness. She saw no harm in letting someone in, even if the gap it created between her and Ethan grew wider with each passing day. Her instincts, once sharp and maternal, dulled under the weight of her own need for affection. Ethan, sensing the shift but not understanding it, withdrew even more. Anna's world felt lighter with Daniel in it, even if deep down, she was ignoring the small signs telling her something wasn't right. The cozy chats, the borrowed books, the gentle compliments, they all began blurring the lines between comfort and desire. And in this space of blurred judgment, the foundation of her relationship with Ethan began to quietly crack, long before either of them would realize the cost. Anna's connection with Daniel deepened faster than she had expected. What began as harmless company shifted into something more personal, more complicated. Daniel offered her the kind of attention she hadn't felt in years. Thoughtful messages, unexpected phone calls, casual compliments that felt sincere and unforced. Slowly, her defenses lowered, and the quiet understanding between them turned into something unspoken but undeniable. The first time she let herself believe it might be love, she didn't question it. She had spent too long building walls around her heart, and Daniel made it easy to forget why those walls existed in the first place. She stopped looking at him as just a friend, and without realizing it, her loyalty shifted away from her son and toward this new bond. The conversations with Ethan grew shorter, her attention divided even when they shared the same room. Her phone, once just a tool for daily life, became a lifeline to Daniel. Ethan noticed everything. The way his mother smiled at her phone, the way her mood changed depending on who she was texting, and the way she avoided his questions. Though Anna never confessed the truth, Ethan didn't need to be told. His mother was pulling away, not because she wanted to, but because something, or rather someone, was replacing the space he used to fill. The growing distance between them wasn't marked by fights or harsh words, but by silence and absence. Daniel's presence, though carefully managed around Ethan, became more frequent. He no longer needed excuses to visit, and Anna no longer looked for reasons to hide her happiness. What Ethan once considered his safe and predictable home was shifting into something unfamiliar. He couldn't recognize his mother the way he used to. The woman who once asked about his day, who always remembered his matches, who filled the house with soft conversation, was now a stranger, her mind elsewhere. Anna believed she was protecting Ethan by keeping her relationship with Daniel quiet, but in truth, the silence hurt more than the truth would have. Ethan felt the change before he could fully process it. His trust was quietly slipping away, one unanswered question at a time. Daniel, on the other hand, grew bolder, confident in the space he now occupied in Anna's life, and with every passing day, Anna's judgment became less about what was right and more about what made her feel alive. The gap widened until Ethan stopped trying to bridge it. The boy who once shared every thought with his mother now kept his distance, retreating into himself, while Anna floated through her days convinced she had finally found happiness. But what she believed to be love was only an illusion, one that demanded her attention at the cost of everything else. Neither of them knew it then, but the truth would surface soon, and when it did, it would leave more than just broken hearts behind. Ethan hadn't planned on finding proof. It happened by accident, the way most painful truths do. While searching for a charger in the living room, his mother's phone lit up with a message from Daniel, the kind no child ever expects to read. Words meant for secret moments laid out plainly on the screen, and in that instant, everything that had felt confusing suddenly made brutal sense. The quiet dinners, the distant looks, the unspoken tension between them. It wasn't his imagination. It was real. The shock wasn't immediate. At first, it felt like numbness, as if the air had been knocked out of him. His mother, the person who had taught him the meaning of trust, had been living a lie right in front of him. The confusion slowly turned into anger, the kind that didn't explode but settled deep and cold in his chest. He didn't confront her right away because words couldn't match the betrayal he felt. But silence became its own weapon, sharper than any argument. Anna sensed the change before he ever said a word. Ethan's eyes, once open and curious, now held a quiet judgment she couldn't ignore. When the confrontation finally came, it was neither loud nor dramatic. Ethan asked one question, clear and direct. Anna, faced with the weight of her son's disappointment, could no longer hide. She admitted everything, her voice steady but empty, stripped of the warmth that once defined her. The moment was quiet but devastating. Ethan didn't need to hear reasons or apologies. What hurt wasn't just the secret itself, but the way she had chosen her own happiness over the honesty they'd always promised each other. Trust, once broken, doesn't leave room for explanations. The betrayal wasn't only about Daniel, it was about feeling like a stranger in his own home, realizing his mother had built an entirely separate world without him in it. Anna tried to justify it at first, telling herself that loneliness had clouded her judgment, that she deserved a chance to feel wanted again. But looking at her son, she understood none of that mattered. The damage was already done. She couldn't protect him from the choices she had made. The silence that followed wasn't about forgiveness, but about the space needed to understand the full weight of her actions. Daniel vanished as quietly as he had arrived, and with him went the temporary illusion of happiness Anna had clung to. What remained was the broken foundation of a family that had already lost too much. Ethan stopped asking questions, and Anna stopped offering answers, both knowing that no conversation could undo the moment the truth surfaced. All that was left between them was the uncomfortable knowledge that some wounds don't heal just because you want them to. They only fade when both sides are strong enough to rebuild. In the weeks that followed, the distance between Anna and Ethan settled into something quieter but heavier. The house felt different, stripped of the ease it once held, replaced by careful conversations and long pauses. Anna tried to return to old routines, but every gesture felt forced, as if pretending could undo the damage. Ethan had stopped questioning her, not out of acceptance, but because the answers no longer mattered. His silence wasn't anger anymore, it was disappointment. Anna knew repairing what was broken wouldn't happen with simple apologies. Trust wasn't something she could demand or expect. It had to be earned, slowly, without shortcuts. She started by being present, not as a way to make up for her mistakes, but because she finally understood what her absence had cost. Conversations that had once been short or distracted became longer, honest, even when the truth was uncomfortable. She listened when Ethan spoke, not just with ears but with patience. Ethan, though still guarded, began to see the change. His mother wasn't trying to erase the past. She was trying to rebuild the future, piece by piece. It wasn't easy. Moments of anger and sadness came in waves, but neither of them avoided them. What had once been a bond built on routine was slowly becoming a relationship built on understanding. For the first time, Ethan realized adults weren't immune to making mistakes, even the ones meant to protect you. Anna didn't search for new connections after Daniel. The need for attention that once clouded her judgment had been replaced by the desire to become whole on her own. She focused on the parts of her life that had always mattered but had been overlooked: her son, her work, and herself. She learned to be comfortable with solitude, not as punishment, but as a step toward knowing her worth wasn't tied to anyone else's approval. Ethan, too, grew in ways he hadn't expected. The betrayal taught him more than just the limits of trust. It taught him resilience. He understood that love wasn't perfect and that people, even those you depend on most, could fall short. Forgiveness wasn't a moment, it was a process. He didn't forget what happened, but he no longer let it define the way he saw his mother. Slowly, the space between them began to close. Months passed, and the house that once echoed with quiet detachment started to feel like home again. The lessons they learned were not about avoiding pain but about facing it, owning it, and allowing it to shape them into better versions of themselves. Their story didn't end with a perfect resolution, but with something more real, a fragile but honest understanding that family isn't built on flawless choices, but on the willingness to try again, even after the deepest wounds.